Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Destiny Movie Night Hangout. Our movie talk of today is the movie Joy. It's still in theaters near you, most likely. Um, yes, and I'm here with Anna, June, and Maya. Hi, ladies.
Hi
Hi,
there.
Mike. Hi there.
Hi everyone.
How's everyone today?
Fantastic.
I'm okay.
Awesome. Well, let's just jump right into this discussion. There's a lot of cool things to talk about. So to begin with, I'll give just the viewers a little synopsis of what this movie was about, and then I'll let you guys add on to anything that you'd like to add on to, and then we'll just go from there. So the movie Joy, it centers around this female woman, a mother, who, that's her name, is Joy. Before having seen the trailer or anything about that, I did not know that. So basically, Joy is like a single mother. There was a falling out in her marriage, but she still lives with her ex-husband. He's kind of well, not doing so well financially, so he's living in Joy's basement, and she's just kind of looking after him to a certain extent. Uh, Joy's mother also lives with her, and she is also looking after her to a certain extent. Joy's mother, you can see, has kind of been in a deep depression, it looks like, most of her life. She's very addicted to the soap opera dramas, spends all her time watching them and kind of living vicariously through the characters. Like, that's so much so her world. And Joy has two young children, like elementary school age, and so she's managing them as well. And then we see early on in the movie that it looked Joy's sister or sister-in-law was looking after the father, like he was staying with them, and she comes to the house with the father saying, he can't stay with me anymore. He's going to have to stay with you. So Joy, she's very good-natured about herself, and so she takes in her father as well. He ends up like splitting the basement with the divorcee, the ex-husband, and that there's some conflict about that there. Um, and then meanwhile, all the while, Joy is also the Mrs. Fix-It of the household as well. It's not really the ex-husband. So you see, like, Joy is managing basically all the relationships. She's got quite a lot on her plate, and she's working a job as she's like a customer service person, basically kind of going through the motions. We see early on that, like, Joy, as a child, had a lot of creative potential, was inventing practical things that were, could have made her very rich in terms of patenting the ideas and selling and starting the business. We see a little bit that, like, her mother didn't provide her the best guidance necessarily, which led into some happenings and maybe just a tingling of animosity there. As like we see Joy, young mother, somewhat middle-aged, and not really living her best potential, you could say, in a lot of ways in terms of monetary success, based on like seeing how wonderful of a woman she is, and it progresses from there. And I won't, I guess, give all the spoiler alert. Well, you know what? Spoiler alert. Um, Joy basically eventually gets herself together, has had like enough in one moment and decides she's going to invent something new, and it's like this wonder mop. She basically designs this, creates this. Long story short, this wonder mop is a success. It's a whole process in making a success, but she's very self-determined. And in the end, it's kind of like Joy is a superstar. Um, would anyone like to add on to anything to that? It
Well,
seemed like I did a pretty detailed. Go ahead.
I would like to add that it's actually based on a true story. So
Oh
um,
yes, good point.
even though it seems quite fantastical, it is actually a real story. at least somewhat. Yeah. So Joy is a real woman.
That's a great
Yeah.
point because yeah, I mean, so often you have these stories that it's set around like the Cinderella or whatever, like the princess, the happy ending, all this, but it's not necessarily practical, and I think that's what's quite cool about this movie is that you really see like a step-by-step process of how everything kind of came into fruition and all the different relationship dynamics that were at play like throughout the process, if you will. We were discussing before we went live here. Each of you had like a main point really that kind of jumped out at you. Let's start with you, Maya. What jumped out at you?
Okay. So a main thing that I noticed there, well, you mentioned that, she had a really tough beginning with all these relationships that she was handling, and then she had this invention, right? So first of all, the invention came out of a lot of pain. Like she was mopping, right? And she cut her hands and she had all that thing going on. And then she was very solution oriented and made up this idea and invention. So a big thing that stood up to me was the lack of support that she had from her family, and people just kind of, like her dad was not support. I mean, they were supportive financially because it was financial decision for them. Like it made sense financially for them to support her, but emotionally and spiritually and like the backing her up wasn't really there. And she just persevered even though, despite her family didn't support her, and she just kept on fighting and kept on moving forward. And you mentioned earlier her being solution oriented, and that's a very big very big takeaway that we had from the movie, where she had everything against her and she just kept on going and kept on moving forward. Even when she fell, she would fall and then she picked herself back up and kept on moving.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool to see because, I mean, you definitely, in watching the movie, if you're not familiar with her story before that, you're kind of wondering, like, where's this going? Because you definitely see at times, especially early on, like, here's this woman who seems like she's got a lot of potential. She's not really living it. She's, in the world, she's basically playing the survival game that everybody's playing. And, she's kind of getting beat up on a lot in terms of how much responsibility she has and basically the contributions that seems like, the main players like in her life, her mother, her father, ex-husband, all this is that, she's doing more than, what you could say is fair, if you will.
Right.
And, it's a kind of a wonder of like, is this going to spiral her into looking like her mother or her father? Because you can kind of already see the play out of both those characters. Yeah, so I think, yeah, that's a very cool example, and it kind of showcases just, an easy to relate to reflection for the viewers watching the movie that, like, everybody is kind of, born into this somewhere, and they go through life, and there's so many things that happen to you, and, that might be in the way of, what you want your purpose or what your passion is, but she kind of shows, like, how systematically, movement by movement, like small point by small point, how you can really structurally align yourself with what is most awesome for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's interesting is that she had so many points that she could have justified failure, right? There were so many circumstances in her life that were not in her favor that she could have, or even us as viewers would kind of expect, oh, that's going to be her falling point. Oh, that's a reason for her not to succeed. And like all these points that I think we in our life, we use these circumstances and environments as excuses and justifications for not moving as effectively as we can. And in the movie, she just doesn't do that. She just keeps on moving.
True. Yeah, you don't really see it even once from her, like, really projecting, like, outward blame or anything.
There was the one fall. Sorry.
No, tell me about it. I don't remember that. So
I just saw it yesterday.
yeah, go
There
for
was the one moment after, so her sister went to give the money to this plastic company. The mold authorization, so like there was that happening behind her back. And then the
Right.
lawyers came in and said, sorry, they own your patent because of this and this, like all this, which is a huge other point, like just how difficult this industry is, and the laws and all that. And then her father and his partner that were her investors, they basically tell her that she needs to go bankrupt, declare bankruptcy. And she signs and they're advising her, and they're the ones that advised her initially, which is what got her into the mess in the first place. So, and she goes ahead and she listens to them and she signs the paper, and then she has a nervous breakdown and she tears up all the papers from the wall, and she tells her daughter, because we didn't mention this, but her grandmother in the beginning of the movie, she dies halfway through the movie, but at the beginning, she was like a point of support. Also kind of half support, but with the intention of supporting her, and she dies. So in that breakdown, she kind of yells at her daughter, don't have dreams, and grandma was wrong, and, you know, she really breaks down there. So there was that one big one, yeah.
True.
But
yeah,
that,
totally.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I totally forgot about that. Like that's definitely a key point.
And it was a small one because, I mean, it happened, but that's then the next step. She had that idea to go to talk to the guy in Texas, and she got all the shit back together in her way, from her inspiration and from her. It was her idea. Like she just went ahead and did it, and then she fixed it all. She's a rock star.
Definitely, which in a lot of ways really showcases like really the pivot. I mean, that was basically the pivot point in the movie, so much so, and I think there is some reflection to take away on that in the real process of creation. Is that there's got to be that you know, that rock bottom, whether crazy consequence happens to you or, you know, you have a harsh reality check and like say, what have I accepted and allowed? Look, here I am, like I'm at the bottom. Make peace with it so that you can create a new kind of thing and kind of move forward and basically move on and see what you can learn from your mistakes. And I think, June, this kind of relates to what you were talking to me about earlier as your main point for the movie, basically seeing it like centered around success here, and just talking about the transition from, you know, basically having the fallout, like the big fall down, and then using that fall, like that weakness, you could say, as a point of strength into, you know, catapulting her forward, giving her like a new, you know, momentum as like, okay, till here no further, let's keep going, kind of thing.
First of all, I thought it was based on a true story. Well, the person is really real, Joy Magano, but they made it a semi-biographical film, which means part of it is real and part of it is dramatized, so that then you earn money from it, of course, and they did. But that's one point that I'd like to question. Should we do films this way, or should we expand it a little bit and give people some sort of a message that is real, that this character that is being portrayed really has seen for herself? Number two is success, because all my ideas of success is based on the movies I watched. So I want to send a message here that if I follow this movie or watch this movie and at the end I have this feeling of, yeah, and that's it. But of course you can't put everything there, right, in a movie. But I would like to question if I did this myself, having been in raw food, and I followed through and created raw products and became the guru of raw food, would this be success for me? I say no, because even if I did an ebook on raw food and it became, I became a millionaire out of it, right? Because at the heart of it, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and then I went through all the process of getting out of raw food, embracing meat, and then now expanding my horizon, which has more money potentials. Could we then make a mop that is not just like this, that has maybe some sort of a mechanical thing where you can eat while you mop, or I don't know, but giving this message to everyone that success isn't just like that. It's more than that.
That's a great point, June, because I mean, what comes up for me in you saying that is it relates to what I was thinking about earlier. Is success is not I mean, it is like a point of accomplishment, right? But there's so many small accomplishments, like small moments, small movements that were like the pivotal, stepping stones, kind of like, a journey of success is like a million steps or whatever. And you don't call it a success until you've taken that a millionth step and you get the reward kind of thing as like the monetary game, or like that's so much so how it's portrayed, through popular culture, when realistically it's all those other things with that end result, but it's not just kind of like the one point on it, it's all the other points connected to it that made that a point of success. And I think that can be a point that's not always so clear in looking at the word success. It's it's so, I think of the analogy of like the iceberg, where you say success is like an iceberg, where you just see like the top of like the triangle or the pyramid or whatever the structure, but really in the iceberg there's so much of it that's below the surface that had to happen and it had to go about, that's directly connected to the success kind of thing, where if you also like listen to people that, let's say, are successful with businesses or whatnot, many of them will tell you that it was only a result of having so much failure that they were ultimately successful. So I think that's a cool connotation to look at as well, is the point of failure being related to it, so much so because so much of our learning is directly a result of experimentation, trial and error, fine-tuning our results. Like look at the process we go through when we're walking. It's like a physical integration point, and we fall down a lot, and we don't even try to stand up right away. It's like a crawl, a move, and that to me maybe could have made the movie a little more raw and not so Hollywood picturesque, as that it was kind of like, yeah, she had like her one kind of main little like fallout, but it was still kind of like very clean cut, and her character was very like, oh, what a good girl, like kind of like the perfect woman, not really any faults. Like she had like a little blip, but it was still all like very polite. And we don't see the extent or like her having any or much real suppression or nasty thoughts along the way, or basically nothing evil about her character whatsoever. And it's not to say that that can't exist or whatnot, but maybe it would be a better aid of support for more people if you got a more like expansive perspective of like the trial and error along the way that leads one to a success. Anything to add on that, June, or is that cool for you? Do you want to hear Anna?
Yeah, let's hear Anna.
Yeah, Anna's been quiet for a while.
Okay, you want me to jump in, or?
Yes, yes, I'm sure you have a lot to say, or if you'd like to add on anything to that, or you just like to jump to what stood out most for you.
Yeah, and I think it's actually kind of interesting how we can see a movie with so different eyes. I would say that a discussion about why movies are created, because I've thought about this a lot and looked at this a lot, I would say that kind of belongs in its own discussion, because that is such a big point. It is very relevant, but it's almost too big to take on here, I would say, and it kind of takes the topic away from all the cool things that are in this movie, like what we can also gain from it. So for me, what stood out the most is the point of potential, and how you have this amazing child that has these awesome creative abilities, and that just like a burst of creative ability. And though you see in the beginning how she builds these models out of paper, and she just has so many ideas. She invents so many little things and comes up with so many ideas. You know, basically she's a person that is meant, you could say, or built to improve the world. She can, you know, that is what she can do. That is her, you know, unique gift to the world, is to create things that makes things better and healthier and more effective. And and so I agree that she's kind of presented as this like perfect person. And so that's an important message that I see is to give or to share, is that every single human being has that unique gift. It might not be exactly the same as she has, and it might not come out as obviously as it did for her when she was a young child, but every single human being has a gift like that, that is their unique potential that they can contribute with and share with the world, and you know, make the world a better place or improve conditions. And so what happens, like I found that this movie is a really good example of what happens with all children, with most children, is that that potential gets thwarted and it gets suppressed and it gets pushed down, and even the system itself is set up in such a way that you're going to fail. And from that perspective, I kind of also agree with June that, you know, it is actually a real story. And I saw an interview with I think it was one of the actors that said that all the most, or maybe it was the director, that the most crazy parts in the movie are actually biographical. So what they've changed is like more like little things, but still it is this like perfect story, and we have so many of these stories that is kind of created to make people believe that, oh, if I just do like that, you know, then they start sitting down and vending maybe, and they think that then they can get super rich just by following in her footsteps. But it's not that easy. But then also, you know, that you have that whole system that is against you, and then you have that thing inside of you that wants to come out, that wants to, whatever it is, that wants to live, that wants to breathe and express and share and create. And in her case, she just couldn't, you know, eventually it had to come out. But also you could say that things conspired so that, you know, she was triggered to finally make that decision to bring it out. But so many people never do that. Or like Maya was talking about, it does come up, you know, that, oh, maybe I should be doing this, or this is what I really want to do. But yeah, maybe it's too late, or I'm too old, or it's not the right time, or I don't have enough money. And so for like probably 90%, 99% of all people, it never actually gets out into the world. You know, you never actually get to live that. And that is, I think, a big explanation for why the world is the way it is today, why it is so bad in so many ways, because we don't actually get to come out with the potential we have inside of us to share and to contribute to creating the best possible world for everyone. So that's the biggest message that I got from this movie.
Oh, that's awesome, Anna. And hearing you talk there, that it really kind of reminds me to a point that I saw was pivotal in the movie, and really, I guess, touches with the big point for me in a person enacting their potential. It's the scene where you see she's basically got herself on the television, that she's like, no, we're not going to use an actor.
Yeah.
I'm going to, you know, present my product. We've seen in the past that, you know, somebody else who doesn't know my product, they can't talk about it effectively. And then there's like the whole point of like, well, you know, you're not an actor. There's going to be like lights, cameras, action on you. You know, how are you going to handle like the pressure of that and whatnot? And, you know, it's kind of like she doesn't really consider that, oh, maybe I will be afraid once the camera's on, and there's like this, pressure to perform, you could say, where it's kind of like in her mind, it's like, oh yeah, I could do that, no problem, like I got this. And then, the spotlight's on, and then what do we see happens? She totally freezes up, right?
Yeah.
Like goes into like a serious like deer in the headlights. They're live broadcasting, and she's just there, and that really showcases ourselves within various degrees of our own fears that really block us from moving through our own discomfort. But what is really awesome, I found in the movie there, and this is like I think a great example for everybody to really assist and support others with, is what happened next. Her friend immediately gets on the phone and calls in and is just like asking her the like supportive questions.
Yeah, maybe that
like
part is dramatized. I could imagine that, but maybe not. Because it's like it's almost too easy, right? It's almost like, oh, perfect timing.
The question
That's
is,
funny.
did she really do that in reality? That's the question.
The friend? Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe she did it. Maybe it was just like, getting scared in front of the camera. That's a joke. Who would get scared in front of the camera? But I think, that is a very relatable point, whether that was the case or not. Like it's commonly accepted that one of the number one fears of all humans collectively is speaking in front of an audience of people, which is kind of a bizarre point when you consider like the possibilities of things to be afraid of, and that's not even really like linked to your survival of like you're going to die from using your words or anything like that. Like you're not going to go hungry immediately through standing on the stage and maybe you're talking for a few minutes or a few seconds or whatever. But
fear of failure. Fear of failure.
Yeah, well, very much so. Very much so. Like it, to the point, it's so deeply ingrained that I think it really showcases and reflects how conflicted we are within ourselves as the very words that we speak, and that to possibly like put ourselves out there in a position of vulnerability where maybe we'll stumble over what we say, or we might say something incorrect, and then kind of have to take like accountability for that, or somebody else might confront our mistake, like which is kind of ironic because it's like we rather almost in the mind as like a defense mechanism keep our mistakes like hidden and not receive like help or feedback to be like, hey, that's not right or whatnot. Like, let me show you the answer. It's kind of almost like such a resistant, I think, to put ourselves out there and get the help. And to go back to the movie, asking each other questions like as a supportive aid, I think has the potential to be a real momentum point, like kind of like get the wheels moving like on the bicycle as just that supportive push, as like what are you doing here, without necessarily saying directly or bluntly, what are you doing here? Where she just kind of saw her point she was in, and it was like, okay, let's just get you going here.
I want to add that. In relation to support, that it's actually interesting because I said earlier that she didn't get much support from her family, but there were three people in her life that did support her. There was the grandmother that kind of wanted her to succeed, her ex-husband, and that friend that made that call. And it's also an interesting point to see because none of us are actually isolated. So whether we have people that are not supporting us and we need to stand up despite of that, or we have people or situations or opportunities in our life that are going to support our success, it's never really isolated. And then it's a choice of taking the opportunity that's presented and working with it, or doing things despite the non-supportive things that you may have, and even using that as support and as a stepping stone forward. But just something about what you said made me realize that, I mean, it wasn't an isolated success. Like she gets all the credit in the movie, but really she had a structure around her that helped her move it forward.
It
Can I just quickly jump
go
in?
ahead. Sure.
I just wanted to say that I just went to Google the movie versus the real story.
Okay.
And she did flop at the infomercial thing at first. It didn't say anything about whether the friend called, but then she did go on herself. And then maybe a fun fact for June is that, because in the movie it says that she doesn't go to college because she has to take care of her parents, right? But she actually graduated with a master's in business administration. So that's an interesting fact that's left out of the movie. That can speak to her that she didn't just have a natural business mind, she actually had an education. So,
does it say when did she get the master's? Was it before?
Yeah, she got it
after her initial success?
No, she got it before. She got it in, no, it just says a degree, it doesn't say a master, in 1978. And then after she worked at that airline thing.
Airline?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's before she went into real business. So that's interesting that they deliberately left that out.
Yeah, because that's like a major labor point, like to the Hollywood production, dreams come true, just, do a few pieces of work. And again, it's kind of like, the iceberg scenario, right? Like, guess what? She went to school for like a specific focus for a number of years, and she used that information later to apply that. So, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, the movie, how many years did it take place time frame in it? Not too many, when you see that point being like a huge, interesting.
Oh, and I sasaw now her friend did call her.
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she did call her.
I really wondered about that point, like to me that's such a supportive point, and like I was just saying with people in communication, I notice this more and more all the time, is just, even going to social settings where, you know other people know other people, but there's like, there's basically points of, dissonance from the perspective of like, there's people at the party that you don't know or your friends don't know or whatnot, and you see people's like characters change based on, how much they know somebody or not know somebody, or even I can relate to that myself, where maybe, I wasn't as comfortable to be as outspoken and express myself, and basically like creating my own mind blip in a moment because it was like, well, I don't know, or maybe going into that point of judgment about, what am I going to say, or how are they going to react to it, or maybe, I shouldn't, having that doubt there, and then kind of going into a freeze frame of just allowing myself to express myself with like a real nice flow and fun and playful nature. So that's just so funny to me, the talking point. Anyone have anything else to add on the talking point? To me, that just is such a big point. It didn't get a lot of attention in the movie, but I just think, if we even look at earlier points in the movie, that was so pivotal for Joy, like where she takes like the onus on to be like, when the designs are messed up, like, okay, I'm gonna go talk to them, I'm gonna go figure this out. Where it's told like, no, you don't have to do that, and she learns of like, basically what you're talking about, like, all the legalities of this thing, is because she resisted to really like look at the words, like the relations about what was going on earlier, and so much of everything, like our business, is just it's the relationship of the words in the contracts, and it's basically designed, it seems like, so much so, like especially with the law, where it's a point to avoid, where it's like things are structured in such a way where no, I can't talk about that, or I can't go into that. Like it just seems like too laborious because of the words that are used.
Yeah, and something you said earlier kind of reminded me when she went into the first scene when she meets Bradley Cooper, the guy that I guess runs that infomercial channel.
Right.
And she just goes in there and like she has the balls to talk to him, right? And I mean, he also mentions that she doesn't really know where she is and she doesn't really know who he is, but she ends up having to describe and express why this mop is so great and like why he should have it on his TV show. And just from my own business, I can see fears that have come up for me with going to points of authority and trying to convince them and show them this value that I have to offer. And it's a fascinating point because, like you said, it's just speaking, it's just talking and sharing information. And the point of doing it with an authority or doing it when there's like your future is at stake or stuff like that, it really creates. I mean, you can allow it to create a lot of blockages in your expression. And again, like she did it, right? Which is a great example. You know, just go and do it. Worst case scenario, like you said, like you're not going to be eaten by a lion. Somebody's going to say no to you, you know?
This actually, what you're saying there, it actually reminds me of, I was having a conversation today with someone that said, you know, why, you know, just asked me, we were talking about someone else and they were saying, so why do you think those opportunity opened up for you and not for this other person? And I looked at it and I saw that it's you know, it's not, again, it's not that she's a special person, it's that she goes for it, exactly like you're saying, Maya. And going for it simply means, you know, you see someone and you know that, you know, maybe that person has connections or whatever, you know, that childish innocence of, okay, I go and talk to them. Or, you know, curiosity. She also has a lot of curiosity to actually, you know, go and explore things and explore people and just talk to people. And just taking small steps like that, that you may not even know where it will lead to. For me, for example, Facebook is like an amazing source of networking and jobs and apartments and, you know, connecting with people even on something as casual and, you know, distanced as Facebook. So many opportunities has opened up in my life by, you know, so for example, someone commenting on me or something I say and just replying, just sending a small little message back can open up a whole new opportunity in your life. And so I think that's a really cool thing to start, especially if you're at a place, you know, similar to Joy, where you have an idea or there's something you want to do, but you don't know how to move forward, or if it feels like the world is against you, or like, you know, there are like walls everywhere and you just can't get through them. I think that's a really good place to start, is to start open yourself up and open your eyes up to all the little opportunities that are, and then, you know, one ball starts rolling and can grow into a bigger ball and bigger opportunities. But you have to start with those small little breadcrumbs that are available everywhere.
Yeah, and then not accept the failure. Like, again, she did it, she talked to him, and then he gave it to his bestseller guy, and it failed. So she didn't give up. She went there, and she did it herself. And then, like, I mean, again, it's very easy to let the challenges be like, okay, so this is where I stop. And if you just don't stop, speaking of success, June, right, you were talking about it, and I think, Michael, you said something also about, like, success isn't an actual end point that you reach. It's just to keep on going and keep on moving. So if every time you fail, you continue moving forward, whether it's, you know, taking the opportunities and calling the people or following up and whatever, then you just continue moving forward.
That point that you just mentioned there, Maya, it reminds me of this wise man that I know who always says to me, he says, he's like, your network is your net worth. And, you know, there's a lot of truth to that, right? Because it's the series of relationship developments you have there. And it's funny, it reminds me almost of like, you know, the internet in a lot of ways, and just like how it's put together. It's all these different ports, and they're all like a point of basically connectivity. And, you know, it's through all these points, you know, working individually, yet they're all connected together, and they're all basically a part of that end result, you could say, or that ongoing result, because, you know, life isn't a static thing. It really is that moment-to-moment movement and application. So it's kind of like an ongoing work and play. And then sometimes we take, a moment to, smell the roses and say like, oh, look, what do we have here? What's grown in the garden, kind of thing. And just one more point to add about Joy basically eventually getting the commercial. Like you mentioned, she talked to the guy, it wasn't given to her, and she eventually got it. But even how the process she went to getting it, she was basically told by multiple people that it's over, it's done, you can't just barge in here and speak. This is, and when she goes into the room, they're like, do you know who we are? Like, this is the whatever board members meeting or da 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 da. And again, she just basically talks her way, into what she wants. Like, it just the word movement there. And I mean, I think that just relates to so many things. It's just like a simple principle in a lot of ways of ask and you shall receive. Whether it's receiving what you want or what you don't want, you're going to receive a yes or a no kind of thing, or something in between as a maybe. But then from there, it's like something to climb on or work with, and from there, it's like you can make your next move, like stretch this way, stretch that way. You've got now like a framework connection based on that first command. Any final thoughts, ladies, for the movie?
I would just like to say something regarding direction.
Yeah.
Because for me, I have the same drive as Joy had, and the director really portrayed that. But what if the director himself has expanded himself so much that he can really go through the whole thing with regards to expanding a character? Because you see, even from a director's perspective, they have to really be aware of themselves first, and then they will be able to play with different characters and different actors. They can direct them to this particular path of expansion, even in the movie. And then also, as an actress, I want to say that for me, if, for example, I will be an actress, it will be very difficult, not only because I don't know, but what if I know, for example, how to act, and I will have to get into a character that is so limited in scope. I might not want to even get in there. So as an actress, to birth ourselves as actresses that really are expansive actresses and expansive directors, we have to really know ourselves first, because that's, to me, is real success. Because then whatever you hold, whatever you do will expand, because you have expanded yourself to such a point. That is my final message.
Very cool, Jim. Very cool.
I actually, when I saw, because I know a little bit about your story, June, and when I saw the movie, Joy actually reminded me a lot of you, because you also have this like very go-getting, relentless, keep going, come up with creative ideas to further yourself in your business. And I thought it was really cool that I know someone that is similar in that way, to have that similar drive that she has,
What? That's awesome.
The end.
Maya, any final words?
I think we covered it pretty well. Yeah. It's just really cool to be able to watch movies and like being discerning around like what am I taking from it, and what lessons can I learn from it, and look to apply that into our lives. I mean, just generally the hangouts that we're doing it's a really cool approach to movies. So just in general, for us to know and notice that.
Totally. Yeah, I doing these hangouts and whatnot, it definitely makes watching movies a lot of fun. Because basically, it really showcases the point of any movie you watch or any show that you watch, there's so much takeaway from it that the learning process here and reflecting on ourselves is really an all the time 24/7 thing. Like it's not just when we're watching movies or series, but there's a lot you can get from any and every one that you watch. That it's not like it doesn't have to be a this or a that kind of movie or that kind of thing. That it's really the process of working with information in so many different ways, and it's reflecting on our relationship definitions of the words and the information, and I just find it so expansive because like the whole network of net worth kind of thing is that I always get so much out of it. It's like every single day we're always participating in something, whether we're directly engaged in a big group activity or it's a series of solo activities. I mean, even within solo activities, you're still directly engaged with other things. Like you're never really all alone, you could say, here from the perspective of that you're always in relationship to different things and whatnot. Like I don't know a single place you can go on this earth where nothing else exists, like because I mean, where would that be? You think like, oh, maybe put you in a room or something like that. Well, guess what? The room's a thing. Like so, you're always in relation to something somewhere, and there's just so much of it. So it's like, yeah, every day is awesome, and it's a process of playing with the awesome and seeing it and reflecting on it and expanding ourselves and looking at things. There's so much to look at all the time.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Really enjoyed it.
We did.
Awesome. And for those watching, thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you next week. The hangout we're going to be doing next week is going to be the movie Whiplash. For those who have not seen it, I'd strongly recommend it. Definitely a very good movie. Everybody I have talked to who's seen the movie has said really good things about it.
What
in
is
fact,
it
I was
about?
surprised that.
Oh, sorry.
Oh man, it's basically centered around the relationship of a drummer who's at like the top music school in the United States of America, and it's like focused around jazz music, you could say specifically. And the teacher is relentless. Like he wants the best potential out of his student, all of his students, and he basically is no fluff about his character kind of thing, where it's like, I'm going to be so straight with you, and I might be a little bit hard with my words at times, but it's only because I'm here to push you to your best potential, and I don't want to like limit you from your best potential by giving you, unnecessary compliments that are going to put you into a comfort zone that's going to keep you from facing all your points of discomfort that exist within you. And I mean, the teacher is a very intense character, and especially some of his word exchanges with the student. And there's a lot of points of discussion about the drive of the character, well, both the teacher and the student, and considering like so many things being like such a fine line, if you will, is like how far is too far, or is there such a thing as taking things too far, or is that like a a paradox in and of itself, and it only
Mike,
seems too
leave
far
something
when you.
for the hangout.
I could monologue that for a long time. I got a lot out of it. So
We want to watch it.
Yeah,
Mike,
good.
just one word. I want to extend my gratitude to the mop for being able to be here to clean my house, and also the tree that is part of that mop and the cotton plant. Thank you.
That's awesome, June. Yes, let's all like take a moment here or a second here and reflect to the mop our appreciation. That's awesome. Awesome. Okay, thanks again, ladies, for being here, and everybody who tuned in watching. And yeah, if you want to get involved next week or have questions, participate. The Hangout's going to be taking place at the same time it took place today. There's always questions available. Like it's basically a live Q&A app for anybody who's not familiar, where basically anyone who's in the audience is able to submit a question, and it'll appear in a little chat box below, and we can open that up live on the air, which is a cool feature that happens from time to time.
Remember to mention it in the beginning of the Hangout, Mike.
Yes. Oops. My bad there. That's why assumption is never a good thing, because something will get missed. And here today, I opened it and I didn't say anything. I assumed that everybody would know about it because I opened it and I mentioned it before. And I assume that everybody knows everything that I ever said. So
that sounds a little bit dangerous.
Yes, no, that's a big fallacy. And just like a disclaimer, I'm just joking. But yes, I forgot, made a mistake, and we'll try to remember for next time.
And you'll be back next week.
Yes, I will.
Like,
Movie Whiplash.
The show must go on.
Tell your friends
Awesome.
and tune in. Awesome.
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao.
Bye.